Let's talk about perfectionism for a second. We tend to wear it like a badge of honor, don't we? It's a sign that we have high standards. But what if it's not a strength at all? What if it's actually a disease that paralyzes us, the very thing that keeps us from ever getting started?
Okay, so here's the game plan. We're going to start by breaking down the perfectionism trap. Then we'll look at why taking action, any action, is better than doing nothing. After that, I've got some fascinating proof that quantity actually beats quality. And from there, we'll get into a super practical tool called the 77% rule and wrap it all up by talking about how to forge the courage to just begin.
All right, first up, let's really dig into why this drive for perfection, which sounds so positive on the surface, often becomes the biggest roadblock we face. We all know this voice, right? It's that quiet, nagging whisper in the back of your head that gives you 1,000 reasons why you shouldn't even try. It's trying to protect you from failure, but what it really does is convince you to do nothing at all. Here's the thing about perfectionism. It's kind of got two faces. There's the helpful side, the one that pushes us to make things better, to refine our work. But then there's this much darker and frankly much stronger side that just fills you with self-doubt and stops you dead in your tracks, absolutely terrified to even start.
And let's be real, this problem is on steroids now. We spend our days scrolling through everyone else's highlight reel, their perfectly staged photos, their flawless-looking lives. And we end up comparing their shiny, finished product to our own messy, chaotic, behind-the-scenes work. It's an impossible comparison to make.
And all of this sets up the central battle for anyone who wants to create or do anything. The fight between thinking about doing something and actually doing it.
This is the key. This is the phrase that can break the paralysis. An imperfect video that actually gets published is infinitely better than some perfect masterpiece that only exists in your head. Getting something done, even if it's messy, will always be better than doing nothing.
Because real skill isn't born in your head. You can't just think your way to becoming a better writer or a better artist or a better anything. Real improvement only comes from the cycle of doing the work, failing, figuring out what went wrong, and then trying it again.
Now, this whole action over perfection thing might sound like a nice motivational poster, but there is some incredible evidence that backs it up. Let's look at a fascinating experiment that proves this point. So imagine you're in a photography class, and your professor poses this exact question. What's your gut tell you? Where does the best work really come from? The pressure to create one masterpiece, or the freedom to create a whole lot of stuff?
So here's how the experiment worked. The professor split the class right down the middle. One half was the quantity group. They'd be graded purely on the number of photos they turned in. If you submitted 100 photos, you got an A. The other half was the quality group. They only had to submit one single photo all semester, but it had to be basically perfect to get a good grade. So what happened? Well, the result was stunning, and honestly, completely counterintuitive. At the end of the term, the professor found that all the best, most impressive, highest quality photos came from the group that was graded on quantity.
So why on earth did that happen? Well, think about it. While the quality group was sitting around theorizing, trying to figure out what a perfect photo even looked like, the quantity group was just out there. They were taking hundreds of pictures, experimenting, messing up, learning from their mistakes, and building real skills through sheer repetition. They were learning by doing.
Okay, so seeing that proof is one thing, but how do we actually apply this in our own lives? Well, let's introduce a really simple, practical rule that can help you break free from that perfectionism trap for good.
It's called the 77% rule. And look, the number itself isn't some magic formula. It could be 80% or 75%. The point is to lower the bar. Instead of asking yourself, is this perfect? You just ask, is this good enough to move forward? It's a simple shift that gives you permission to be imperfect.
So let's just sear this into our brains. 77%. This isn't a C+, it's your new target for making progress. 77% is the new 100. So how do you actually apply this? You give yourself permission to do 3 things, and this is going to sound crazy. Do it fast, do it bad, and do it wrong. I know, it feels wrong, but the moment your only goal is to start, that inner critic just loses all its power. Your first draft is supposed to be a mess. Just get something on the page. And think about it this way. Getting from 0 to 77% complete, that's where all the real work happens. But chasing that last little bit, from say a 95% to 100%, can take just as much time and energy for improvements that, honestly, almost nobody's ever going to notice. Perfectionism is a fantastic tool for editing, but it is a terrible tool for creating.
So finally,
let's tie all of this together with a powerful shift in mindset. Because this is about more than just a rule. It's about building the internal strength to just begin. I want you to think about this as your mindset forge. You know, a blacksmith doesn't pull a perfect sword out of the fire on the first try. They start with a raw, ugly lump of metal. They heat it, they strike it, they cool it, and they strike it again and again and again. It's the process of repetition, of action, that forges it into something sharp, strong, and masterful. And your work is exactly the same.
So, what are the big takeaways here? Number 1, embrace imperfect action over perfect inaction, always. Number 2, your first draft is supposed to be terrible. That's its job. Number 3, you don't grow by avoiding mistakes, you grow by collecting them. And finally, number 4, use failure as your most powerful tool for improvement.
And that brings us to the end, but it's really a new beginning. So I'm going to leave you with this one question to think about. What is one project, one idea, or one task that you've been putting off because you're waiting for it to be perfect? And how can you just get it to 77% done today?